the next game that I want to be able to talk about is a game that's not out yet. This is coming to Kickstarter April 1st, and I was able to give this game a shot a couple of weeks ago. This is actually in the same session in which we played Newton. So after a game of Newton, we broke this game out and tried it, and I was impressed by it, and I want to be able to talk about it today. This game is called Blume, spelled Blume, not Bloom. However, it is kind of a fancy name.
Is it like Judy Blume? Is that how you spelled her last name?
I have no idea who you're talking about.
What?
No,
the
I don't
author
know who that
of
is.
classic middle school grade girl novels
You read
from the 90s?
You read books, specifically those ones. You're weird.
I did in the 90s. I haven't
Oh
since
my
then.
God. No, this is absolutely in the like reverse trajectory of whatever the heck you're talking about.
All right.
But this game, Blume, is designed and illustrated by Steve-O Torres. It was developed by Marshall Britt and Andrew Toth. Marshall Britt actually is a good friend of mine from Leader Games. He came out and we played Newton together, and he, I think, kicked our butts, if I remember. He played really well. So the publisher of this game is Yanaguana Games, and Yanaguana has a couple of small releases out there, and I think Blume is going to make a splash for this Kickstarter that's coming out here in a few weeks. But Blume, this is an abstract game in which we are all gardeners. And gardeners, as gardeners, we have like this plot of land that's sectioned off into these square grids. And we start off with 4x4 grid, which then grows to a 5x5 grid and then grows into a 6x6 grid after each round passes. And what we're doing is we are going to be taking flowers, which are these face down tiles, and we are going to be creating a whole garden worth of really beautiful flowers, whether they are the same species or crossbred with one another. So what will happen is we'll be kind of given this special card for this round to be able to say, okay, you need to be able to create this type of hybrid flower, which might be a mix of blue and yellow, that have to be in this certain position. So each tile that you have that I think is face up that you can choose and pick, you take that and you place it down anywhere in this 4x4 or somewhere in this 4x4 grid. And I believe there's placement restrictions, but you just end up creating these really, really awesome hybrid flowers that are in this in this grid. And then what will happen is that every time you complete a flower that is all of the same color or of the hybrid type, what you're able to do is you're then able to affect these different tracks, such as a greenhouse supply or the local market, determining the actual point value of the flower at the end of the game. So what will happen is that you fill out your flower bed, and then you'll do some you'll do some calculations or set up for the next round, and then you'll expand to a 5x5 and then to a 6x6. And again, this whole market track is fluctuating, and you're just kind of always at the end of this round. When you have this flower bed, you're kind of also setting yourself up for the next round, which is really interesting too, because you kind of want to pay attention. You get so caught up in wanting to maybe complete this flower or creating this other thing, but you realize when you get towards the edges and you're getting to your next round, you have to start kind of putting things into a specific order so you can set yourself up for success next time, which is really fascinating. And so then at the end of 3 rounds, the player with the most valuable flowers wins the game. So all these things come into play. Also, there are these water not water tiles, but there's these very specific areas that if you get a certain flower in this area, you get bonus points for that, if I recall correctly. But this is just an absolutely beautiful game. I think it's a great mixture of theme and abstract gameplay where you're building this flower bed together and creating these beautiful flowers. And I think anyone who has a green thumb and just has an inkling of interest in board games, I think could find Blume to be in a start in their collection or something, because it's a really neat game, tile placement game. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
That's really interesting. I'm looking at pictures here on BGG, and this is one of those games that, and I've seen this trending a bit, where it's asking to be posted on social media, right? Mm-hmm. It's games that just look great and just beautiful imagery. And this looks super cool. I could see this I could see this game being played over at my in-laws. My awesome mother-in-law is a gardener, and she just spends so much time out there, and I think she would love something like this. And she likes games. I think that would be a lot of fun. That looks fascinating. Now, in the images here, it's showing a 5x5 grid. Has it been reduced down to a 4x4 grid?
Let me check here too, because I'm probably sure. 3x3, 4x4, 5x5. Excuse me. Yeah. So it's not. It doesn't go up to 6x6.
Oh, okay. Does that depend on player count?
No, it doesn't depend on player count. A lot of what you see on BGG isn't completely final. Those are all prototype stuff, and it was my fault accidentally. As I was trying to recall, I thought it got up to a 6x6, but that is too large. It starts off with a 3x3 grid, moves up to a 4x4, then a 5x5.
I see. Okay,
and that's how that will work. And yes, going back to, so like your greenhouse supply is like how much of that flower you end up creating. And then there's a track that goes above that's kind of public. And what can end up happening is you can move that track up or down. So like, for instance, if you're seeing someone run away with all of the different red flowers, there are other players that could theoretically move that red flower track down, kind of keeping this check and balance in terms of somebody that wants to do that, which is interesting, which gives consideration to try and not maybe go full bore, because then you'll start realizing that other players can build their flowers and affect your track in a way that means that, you know, if you invest so much, you could even have negative points, which is interesting. And I just what else is there about this game? I know what I wanted to say. Here's the thing about Blume, in that I think it could have a wingspan appeal if it invested into the encyclopedia of different flowers.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, totally.
Yeah, I don't know all the full details, but it would be really cool in that the different 6 flower types were from a specific flower, I don't know, species, and that you could have these really interesting, these. What are them? Help me, please. I'm struggling. Combinations, mutations.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? Like, these different I've said the word like 5 minutes ago. Now I'm struggling again. I don't even know.
I know what you're talking about.
I'm a good podcaster, man. Yeah, I think if it went that route with Wingspan, I think it would definitely enhance it, because then like people would be like, oh man, this flower exists here and here and where and where. Much like Wingspan, where each specific card is a bird that has a little blurb underneath it, which I think really captures that. People who love birds to be able to be like, oh, I know this kind of bird. Like, that's really crazy that they have this bird with this specific information on it that is of real life. And I feel like Blume might be able to I mean, who knows? I have no idea. In any case, I want this to be on people's radar, because I definitely think this is a hit that I hope will get funded here on Kickstarter come in a few weeks. So be on the lookout for it for sure.